everyone. It's Chelsea with Wound Care University, and we have Dr. Marcus Gitterle with us again, my favorite guest star. Today, we're going to be talking about just kind of the review that we got from the NBDHMT of the chamber fire that happened in Michigan, which has just, I think, been a real spotlight on hyperbaric safety in the industry in general, which was probably needed. And it always is so unfortunate. I feel like that it takes like a large event like this, like a literal catastrophe, to get, the kind of attention we need to improve safety. But it serves as a reminder for us for sure. So when I was reviewing the paperwork, I guess like the official report, what I thought was interesting was that the static buildup was the issue there. The chamber, I don't think, was grounded from what I recall seeing. The patient wasn't grounded. But the patient did have like skin contact with the mattress. I don't know if you've ever been told this before or not, but I had been told previously by folks in the industry that if the patient's skin is touching the mattress, it's fine because it grounds them. So I think we can officially put that to bed as being not an acceptable method of grounding a patient.
And things with different static potential, can interact in the chamber. Ideally, the patient should be grounded. It's a standard best practice. It should be part of the SOP of any credible hyperbaric, center. And the chamber itself should be grounded internally. There should be continuity of that ground. So that everything's at the same potential. And it's such a basic, but it's humbling because, it reminds me that medicine is fraught with opportunities for misadventures, and, they happen in every specialty. So this is not unique to hyperbaric medicine. We certainly have a pretty darn stellar safety track record in the house of hyperbaric medicine. If you look at, in terms of total number of treatments versus adverse events,
100%,
they tend to be very trivial and temporary, things like barotrauma, barotrauma, just incidental. But then, in the history of hyperbaric medicine, we've had, a few of these. The 2025 incident is what occasioned this interview, but then also the Fort Lauderdale incident in Florida. I guess it was Lauderdale by the sea. And then Ocala, Florida, there was a equine hyperbaric incident that killed the operator and the horse. So, we know these things happen and around the world, there are similar incidents in various places.
There's even been one since the one that we're discussing today in, I believe it was Arizona, where a physical therapist had a chamber and he was treating himself in it.
Right. That's
and
right.
There was a fire and an explosion. I think that's still very much under investigation. There's some speculation about what that was about, but that's, been too in recent history with monoplace fires. And we know that monoplace chambers, of course, are unfortunately just at a higher risk for fires because it's 100% oxygen. So when you have so much fuel, then you can't do anything about that. Like you have the patient, you have a mattress, you have bedding, you have 100% oxygen. We have to be so careful about making sure there's nothing that could be like a heat or ignition source. And a big source of that in this case was static. I mean, in this case, it just sounds like it was horrible. There was an actual like fireball that occurred within just 3 seconds, like full involvement.
Yep.
In 3
There's
seconds.
That's the linchpin, is monoplace chambers pressurized with pure oxygen, which is the norm, are absolutely, a fire risk, no question about it. And that's where I think every field kind of falls into a consensus trance. And I think it's to the credit of the specialty that this hasn't happened more often, because the conditions for this to happen are really, really simple.
Yeah.
And just a couple of mistakes, could lead to one of these. And that's why I keep in my mind, we have to look for those gaps. And I have these concepts that I kind of apply as a framework when I'm thinking about the practice of medicine and our specialty. And one I call high assurance medicine or high reliability medicine. And it's the idea that, it doesn't just happen. You have SOPs, you follow them, kind of
Yeah.
analogous to flying. The airline industry has an incredible track record, and yet we have these still, regularly. There are terrible accidents, and sometimes you can see the steps that led to, that tragedy.
Yeah.
But the only way to reliably prevent that stuff in any industry is like what you do as our, safety lead, um, and that is just be annoyingly thorough about it. Keep
Yeah.
pissing me off with
I
your
think
annoying thoroughness.
with my annoying I always tell Sarah, like, the traits that make me annoying to go out with, being a nervous Nelly about everything, make me great at my job.
Yep.
Like, you want a nervous Nelly to be in control of your safety program. And back to your analogy about, flights and how it's pretty comparable. Like, there's how many planes in the air right now, and you don't ever hear about anything unless something bad happens. There's 1,400 hyperbaric facilities in the United States right now running a chamber. You don't hear anything about it till it's in the news. But with
Yep.
the whole, airlines thing recently, there have been some cuts to airline traffic
Oh yeah.
control,
Right.
TSA, all these like pretty important
Yeah.
things that are
Yep.
central to safety. And then you see an uptick in incidents. So I think that that's a great callback to us of like making sure you have appropriate staff that's appropriately trained.
But we never have cuts in healthcare, or staffing problems. So we're immune to that, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Everyone is always, no one
No
calls in sick.
cuts, no shortages. We've just got,
We have
all the
piles of
people we
money.
need and all the money to pay for
Exactly.
safety stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, wait. I'm awake now. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
I
It's so
wish.
true. It's what a balance that we have to strike, gosh darn. I don't know how medicine does it. I mean, in our specialty, I mean, it's not unique to us, but you know, uh, gosh, how do we do it? How do we keep doing it?
I feel like
What do you think? You're the guru.
the
You're
push
on the
in the
safety committee at
industry.
UHMS, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the push I think is always in the industry to do less. Wait, no, do more with less. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the way it's always been, see more patients with less nurses. And like, I
Mhm.
remember back in the days in the ED, and you do too, I'm sure, where, how many patients can you take back with, one physician and two nurses on staff? And, your triage room is full, and it creates like very unsafe ratios sometimes. Um,
Right.
but, in a clinic, we have a little more control over saying like, I'm not able to do this
Mhm.
without the appropriate staffing ratio. I need to have, one
Mhm.
tech per two chambers. More than that, we need to have another person back here who's gone the 40-hour course.
Right.
My physician has to be in the building. He can't say that he's,
Right.
a mile away at Starbucks, because that's
And
something that folks
more
try.
and equally important, and something I think I so respect that you have done, is I've been in, this isn't the only group where I've practiced hyperbaric medicine, but it's really the first group that has had high expectations for the safety knowledge and chamber operation knowledge
Yeah.
on the part of the providers that we do. I just think that's extraordinary because I know there are many hyperbaric operations where the provider would be hard pressed to describe the key safety procedures
Yeah.
extemporaneously in a survey or to be able to bring somebody up. If they had to, if their tech has a stroke or something. I mean, so anyway, bravo. But yeah, I don't,
Yeah, it's
so what,
important.
so how can you outline what you think is the key, because in a world where we do end up, oh, Cindy can't come in Thursday, we're going to have John, operate the chambers today, and John hasn't done it for 3 months. What do you do in that world?
I think that if there's ever a situation where, this is going to be a hot take, if there's ever a situation where it is not safe because of staffing or the staff themselves is undertrained or underqualified, I would rather not dive a patient than
Yeah,
have a catastrophic incident. I would so much rather say, I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith, we're going to have to move your treatment to tomorrow. It's unfortunate, but I would rather a patient miss a session than end up on the news
yeah,
in
yeah,
this manner. And
exactly.
those are hard decisions to make, especially when you might have folks in admin who are pushing for money, money, money.
Yeah,
But you have to be trained to advocate for yourself. And I teach this in our 40-hour introductory course for our chamber techs, our safety directors, our NPs, PAs, new doctors that are doing this. You have to advocate for yourself and for the patient. If you feel that is unsafe for whatever reason,
right.
you got to stand up to the powers
Yeah,
that may be and just say, this is unsafe and I'm not going to do it. Plain and simple. I mean, make sure
well,
that you can like stand on business and defend your case, because you might have to when you sue them later if they fire you. But
right.
have a
And
good case for why you feel like it's not safe and don't do it.
so also, because go, no go, guidance changes, and we're constantly hiring and training people. And, and then also there's always that retraining gap, like people do forget important
Yeah.
things. So what do you think, what are your secrets? What have you gleaned being in charge of multiple people in multiple places, multiple states, to make sure that they're retrained and appropriately and checked off appropriately and
Yeah.
demonstrate the abilities? What do you do?
We have a whole process that I think works really well. For the chamber logs themselves, we use Clinipaths, which is like an online hosted chamber check off where I can check each facility because I can't drive around and check all these places and check to make sure they're doing their logs. And I can send out love notes if things aren't getting done. That's where they get safety topics assigned, policies and procedures assigned to review. Because you never want
Yeah,
a situation where, oh my gosh, there's a tornado warning for the first time ever, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what the policy and procedure is for this. But if you're constantly always kind of reviewing these
yeah,
things and keeping it in the forefront of your mind, it changes the culture, which I think is what I really tried to improve at our facilities. It's just the culture of safety, the stop before you put your patients in. We do, as soon as they finish the HBO course, whether it's a provider or a tech or a nurse, they do their competencies after they've done 5 chamber side treatments, which I think is something no one else is doing. And then there's annual refreshers, and you just have to keep on top of that. I've made a lot of different presentations that are like easy references for folks who haven't been around the chambers for a little bit to go back and refresh before they touch the chambers again. Um, and just, always imparting the culture of safety and enforcing like the NFPA guidelines. I think that's the only thing that really keeps folks safe, is just enforcing constantly that, complacency is not an option, because that's when things get messy.
how do you translate that also so that it's not just you being the cranky, squeaky wheel, and you that they're accountable to? How do you enlist the help of the program directors at different sites so that they're conscious? Because a lot, what are they responding to? They want to get the treatments completed, they're being tracked by productivity KPIs.
Yep.
And most of them haven't taken the hyperbaric course or had the safety training in the same level of detail as the operator, the CHTs do. What do you do
Yep.
with them?
Well, all of our program directors go through the 40-hour introductory course. If their
Okay, so
facility, yeah,
that's right.
yeah,
We do mandate
yeah.
that. That's
If
true.
their
And
facility
yeah,
has HBO, they're going to know how to handle it, how to get
yeah,
patients approved, what the safety requirements are. But I'll be 100% honest with you. My focus is not on the program directors. It is
yeah,
on this technical or safety directors at each
yeah,
facility, because they are ultimately the end all person who approves or doesn't approve what goes in the chamber at those facilities.
So do you apply the same regime, if you will, to monitoring and retraining the other people that are qualified in a, in a pinch to do chamber operations at those sites, like if it's an RN that has taken the hyperbaric course and,
Yeah.
but they rarely actually sit chamberside, what do you do with them?
They have to do the re-education before, if it's been a couple months and they haven't done chambers, there's the printouts that are the handouts of all the safety do's and don'ts that are there by the chambers that they need to refresh themselves on before they touch chambers again. Same thing for our providers. Those are printed out there, chamber side, and it's something that everyone needs to be very cognizant of. And then yearly, of course, they get like their big re-education where I quiz them on everything. And if people are not really tracking, then there's opportunities for re-education to get them up to speed. Um, I mean, we got to stay on top of it. It's non-negotiable in our industry. And I think from what I have seen and heard, perhaps there might be a real shift in us having to be very compliant. Um, of course, if
You
you
mean they're
are,
gonna make us be compliant?
they're going to force us.
Those
Well,
jerks.
if you are associated with a hospital or a clinic to the capacity that you're billing CMS,
Right.
you, as of 2021, I think it was, have to be in compliance with the NFPA 99, which should have been done a long time ago. Before that, I think it was the Life Code 101. So most hospitals, most clinics that are on the level that are doing things through CMS that are billing are already in compliance. I think where we really run into most of these issues in the industry are people who are doing this off label. They have, blow up chambers. They have
Wait, is that's a terrible pun.
blow up chambers, sorry, inflatable chambers that sometimes blow up too. So I mean, there's just a lack of control in the industry, I think, focused on folks that are not in compliance with CMS and NFPA. But what's happening in Michigan as of this year is there's going to be a push for licensing for hyperbaric facilities, whether you are billing CMS or not. If you have those chambers, guess what? You have to be accredited by something like the UHMS facility accreditation, the NBDHMT, and now the ACHM has one too. So that's going to have defined roles like a medical director. Everyone has to do the 40-hour introductory course. There's a bunch of safety things we have to hit. I am a UHMS facility accreditator, so I could go on and on about all the things that we look for. It's a lot, but it makes you, creme de la creme of the industry. So the facilities, I think, are going to have to be accredited in Michigan. But I think that this puts a spotlight on that. And there are definitely national implications of this. So I think we're going to see a trend where there's going to be an increase in state level regulation and legislation.
Does that create a chaotic landscape if it's at state level, or do you see, I know efforts are underway and I'm on the board of the APWCA and they've been doing considerable work in relation to this chamber fire in Michigan and advocating to the Michigan legislature. But how do you see that harmonizing so that it isn't this, schizoid landscape of regulations so that companies like ours, if we take over a center in Michigan, oh my gosh, now we have to digest the whole new, do you think there will be pretty a fair amount of harmony between those regs?
No, I don't. I think anytime we see anything law-wise in general that's passed on a state-by-state basis versus a uniform national thing, it's always a bit of a mess. And I think that the rollout has the potential to be, like you said, rather chaotic. I just hope that all the states at their level do the best they can to make it uniform. I think that there needs to be a shift towards more proactive safety versus this weird reactive regulation that we're seeing. And I think everyone should just hopefully get on board. That would be ideal. But I mean, as long as they're going through, the normal routes through one of those accreditation routes, it shouldn't be too bad. And if you're already in compliance with the NFPA 99, there's nothing extra that we're asking.
Well, I think that's the key. And I think probably most of the states will have that be, either you're compliant and certified through X pathway, or you have to do all these things
Yeah.
and have it separately inspected. Yeah. And so the smart organizations will take the high road and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with our company's owner a couple weeks ago about, hey, if this starts to shift, how ready are we? And it was, a reassuring conversation of like, we're already completely compliant with the NFP 99.
Yeah,
So there's like a couple things I'd have to change at each facility because they are very strict and we have, super, super high standards.
Yeah.
But there's, a couple T's to cross and I's to dot here and there. But for the most part, if you're already doing the right things, this is not anything that anyone should be scared of or scared about. The extra cost, there shouldn't be anything you have to do aside from just the accreditation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, any other, things that you think are worth, our listeners gleaning from this, or pondering, any resources that you have in mind to share with them or recommend?
Of course. So just my general advice is just to be, careful, do your best that you can to change the culture at your facility if you feel like you're not there. Remember that if someone tells you, oh, we've always done it this way, that's like the most dangerous thing that you can be told.
Yeah.
If you're going into a new program, I always caution folks to never do it the way that it's been done. Just because the analogy I always draw here is, it's like drunk driving. You tell someone, oh, well, I drink 8 beers and get behind the wheel all the time, and it's always been fine. I've never been pulled over. I've never been caught. I've never gotten a wreck. That doesn't mean you are doing something good or right. It just means you haven't got busted yet. So take a real critical lens when you're looking at the facility that you already work in. Check your linens, check this low-hanging fruit stuff, what people are allowing in the chamber. And there's so many good resources, like the NFPA 99 itself kind of tells you everything that you need to know already in terms of how to run your facility safely, what can and can't go in the chamber.
Right.
UHMS is just, they have a whole, become a member. I beseech you, become a member. They have so many resources. They have this thing called FAQ. It's a drop down on their website. Sometimes even I run across stuff. I'm like, I have never heard of this. So when I do
right,
a
it's
search
detailed.
and, it's
incredible.
Worldwide sharing of information regarding safety. Someone else has probably run across this. So it's a great resource to have and just really work with cultivating this safe culture with your team. And I think you'll be A-okay.
All right. And seemed like there was something else I was going to ask you. Oh, are you still a surveyor, safety surveyor?
I am. Yep.
Yeah.
With the UHMS accreditation surveys. I actually just did a refresher training yesterday because it's been a minute, and I have my next one in June. I'm very excited about.
So what's the most interesting thing you've seen as you've been out there in the field surveying?
Nothing really interesting per se. The facilities I've gone to really have their stuff together. But I will say the things that get missed are kind of obvious sometimes because once again, you're used to it. It's the way it's always been. And we bring it to their attention. They're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. That's the way it's always been, So it's just little things sometimes, and like having a really critical eye is super important. Sometimes maybe getting an outside perspective is helpful, which is, where these accreditation surveys really come into play. But I've also learned a lot about people who do things the right way, and I've been inspired, and I've said, hey, is it okay if I tell other people about this? Because you're doing a great job at this. One of the things I saw at a facility in Utah that I was like, I love this, is printing out the prohibited items sheet and putting it inside the patient lockers. Brilliant.
That's
Another
that
point
is brilliant.
Of,
it is.
Of
It's so
simple. With the
simple.
patient. Yeah.
So simple. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've done great with that. Like we have our posters in like the dressing room and the waiting room. Some of our facilities have a stop on the chamber door. But anytime you can add another reminder is beautiful. So I have learned a lot of really positive things too from people that are doing it right as well.
And definitely ground the patient, you're saying?
It helps. Yeah, it's definitely a non-negotiable. Checking your
Okay.
grounding, and just
Yeah,
making sure that you're doing the most to keep everyone safe, your patients and your staff. Everyone
yeah,
needs to go home.
yep. Yeah, I remember, having occasions getting out the O meter and, making sure that there really is ground continuity and yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's a real thing, isn't it?
Yep,
Safety is a real thing.
it truly is. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Gitterle. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you. This was
Likewise.
lovely. We'll have to do it again soon.
Yes, we will. All right. Bye.
Bye.